Morning glory and evening grace, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, back inside the Beltway, just in time for the release by the House Armed Services Committee and the Senate Armed Services Committee of their reconciliation overview. And to walk through that with me, I've asked Admiral Mark Montgomery, retired United States Navy, now a senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy, to join me. Hello, Admiral. It's great to be back in the Beltway. It's not miserable here. That's odd. I caught the one day of the year it's not miserable here.
Thanks. Yeah. So you came here, so I flew out to San Francisco just to maintain the 3-hour differential between us.
All right. Now, I don't know if you've seen the HASC SASC overview yet. Did it make it out to the Golden Gate City yet?
I've seen a review of it. I have not read the whole document yet.
Let's start. I'm just going to run down the 10 bullets for your reaction. Number one. Yep. $9 billion for service member quality of life, funds increases in allowances and special pays, as well as improvements to housing, health care, and assistance to military families. What says Admiral Montgomery?
I like that. If we have less than $9 billion in mold in our barracks, I'll be shocked. But we've got to get at that. We've got to get at. I mean, some of these aren't acceptable. You know, my son's a young junior officer right now, so I get a chance to see how the junior end lives right now, and I'd say it's suboptimal. And I think anything to improve either the pay or the extra benefits that the young sailors get is critical. We don't need young sailors, close to qualifying for SNAP. We need to get it some distance away from that if we're going to retain the right quality people.
All right, number two. $34 billion for shipbuilding and maritime industrial base, expands the size, enhances the capability of our naval fleet, invests in autonomous surface and subsurface technology, builds capacity, improves infrastructure in the maritime industrial base. Enough or a beginning?
This is a beginning, and it's a beginning in two ways. You're mentioning resources here, basically $34 billion. That's basically over up to a 10-year period, but probably this would be pretty, of the money we're talking about, this would probably get out the door reasonably quickly. It needs to be, it's not increasing the base of shipbuilding, right? The part of the consistent part of the defense bill each year that goes to shipbuilding. That also has to increase. Now, not 34 billion, but it has to increase, because when you look at Congressional Budget Office analysis of Navy shipbuilding plans to get to the kind of number that President Trump talks about, to get up to 375 to 385 ships, is going to take a change in the base budget of shipbuilding. So this is good. It's a start. And one other thing I'll mention, we still need that maritime shipbuilding team at the National Security Council to be coming up with the right rule changes, law changes, authorizations, presidential decision making that allows the money to get spent most efficiently and effectively. So this is the start of resources. It's got to be joined by more resources, and equally importantly, the appropriate authorities and guidance to spend it right.
All right, now this one's very interesting to me. $25 billion with a B for Golden Dome for America. Supports President Trump's vision for a layered missile defense shield for America. Develops the space-based assets needed to support the system. Rapidly accelerates defense against hypersonic threats to the homeland. Is that enough?
Again, this is a good plug to get us on the right path. The base will have to be set right. So service, particularly the Space Force, which has a pretty low budget relative to the other services, is going to need the consistent money to replenish the satellites. A lot of this is going to be based on satellite-based systems, or the satellite itself only lasts 4 to 7 years. So there's a replenishment aspect to this, what we call life cycle maintenance. So it's a start. I do think it's critical that General Gutlein, or whatever 4-star they put in charge of this, biases the system towards space and towards looking forward, even if it's not space-based, but looking forward. It does not buy a whole bunch of 30 and 40-year-old technology like THAAD, Patriot, and Aegis Ashore, which the senators would love them to do if it's manufactured in their state. But you and I, as taxpayers, would like them to think forward, not backwards.
I agree. I think it should be built in Ravenna and ought to be brand new. I saw a plan for Ravenna, Ohio Arsenal. Let me talk to you about the munitions budget. $21 billion plus up for munitions production. Enough?
Well, first of all, this just makes me giddy. I mean, 21 billion's a lot. Unfortunately, the sad answer to your question is probably not enough. And I say this because our munitions cost too much. And we expend, we have adversaries. We plussed up anti-ship cruise missile munitions after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So in 2022, we plussed it up. All that stuff delivered in 2024. We literally fired an equivalent number of missiles at Houthi attacks as we brought in to improve our readiness for China. So we obviously did not improve our readiness for China. Our systems are wicked good now because of everything we learned shooting down Houthi missiles. So look, the munitions number is great. It could always be more. And the most important thing we have to do is figure out how to spend it smarter, how to shoot down cruise missiles for less than 3 to 5 million apiece, how to shoot down inter-range ballistic missiles for less than 15 to 20 million apiece. These numbers are astronomical, the cost of some of these defensive systems.
All right, let me tell you the one that disappoints me the most. 13 billion for nuclear deterrence. Accelerates modernization of the triad, improves readiness for our current nuclear deterrent, invests in infrastructure needed to restore America's ability to manufacture nuclear weapons. Columbia alone, the Columbia-class boomers cost $20 billion, Admiral. Is $13 billion, is that again, window dressing?
Yes, because the reality is this is supposed to be in the base, right? Sentinel, which is the intercontinental ballistic missile replacement, the B-21, which is the air leg replacement, and the Columbia-class strategic ballistic missile submarine, which is the Ohio-class replacement, are in theory in the Air Force, and Navy budgets. In practice, they're all blowing through their budget targets, particularly Sentinel, which is as I recall now, about a year ago, we just kind of nonchalantly announced, well, it's doubled in budget from about 77 billion to 140 billion because we hadn't calculated things properly on fixing the infrastructure. This 13 billion is this doesn't stop the bleeding. This cleans up some blood that's on the side of the body, right? I mean, we've got real work to do here. The 13 billion is window dressing.
All right, let me talk to you about 11 billion for Pacific deterrence. Expands military exercises, improves readiness of Indo-PACOM forces, acquires capability, builds infrastructure, improves Taiwan's self-defense capabilities. It's a lot of words. It's 11 billion, but I don't think that's enough either.
And sir, that's spread out over a number of years, right? That is not 11 billion in 2025 or 2026 or 2027. That is spread out. Look, it's important. It's giving the COCOM, the Combatant Command, Indo-Pacific Command, some money to execute priorities that he felt, the last few commanders have felt, were not being properly serviced by the military services, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, right? So this is going to be important. They'll use it for exercises. They'll use it for systems that communicate between your key allies, like the U.S. and Japan, U.S. and Australia, all three of us together, Korea, Taiwan, those kind of allies, the Philippines. This is going to be very useful, and it can fund the development of our training with the Taiwans. We are at the very lowest level of coordination with the Taiwan military right now. That is a big negative when it comes to deterring China. So giving the PACOM commander the money to drive up our readiness and drive up our integration with the Taiwan military is critical. So I like the 11 billion. It's 11 billion more than we've ever done in this way. But you're right. We could probably spend more.
All right. This one kind of makes me laugh. 7 billion for air superiority. Reverses declines in fighter force posture, accelerates delivery of next generation aircraft and autonomous systems. I don't even know what that means. But 7 billion does not buy a lot of B-21s.
So this is about, I think it's about F-35, maybe F-47 eventually, and the cooperative, the UA, the unmanned what's called CCA that flies alongside it. Look, the Air Force needs money, just like the Navy. The fight with China is an air maritime fight fought by the Air Force and the Navy, 40% each. Marine Corps, Army, Space, everybody else, 4 or 5% each, 5 to 10% each. I mean, we have to take care of the Air Force. But here's the problem. They're taking care of the wrong thing. The thing that is killing us in our Air Force right now is insufficient refueling aircraft, what's known as the KC-46. They're not delivering fast enough. Boeing has not covered itself with accolades with this. We've got to get the KC-46, not fighters.
Admiral, stand by, because there are 3 more bullet points I want to cover with you off the air, and we'll put it on the podcast, see if we can't work it in later. Don't go anywhere. Admiral Mark Montgomery can be followed on X at Mark C. Montgomery, retired United States Navy, but just at Mark C. Montgomery, and he's going to stick around with me for the 3 last bullet points. Stay tuned. Okay, save the easiest one, Admiral. $5 billion for border security. This funds DoD personnel and logistics, support to the Department of Homeland Security to carry out border immigration and counter drug enforcement agenda. That enough money to do that? I think it is.
I think so. And this prevents us from creating a little readiness hole in those kind of Guard and Homeland Security and Army units, and maybe Air Force units that will be doing this mission. I guess a ship or 2 at that point as well. What you don't want to do is do an op with no what's called overseas contingency operations, OCO funding, in other words, spare money to fund it like we had during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. This covers down for that. It prevents readiness gaps, so it's important.
All right. Penultimate. $400 million, not real money, for fiscal responsibility and a clean audit. Invest in IT infrastructure, business systems, new AI capabilities needed to ensure that DoD fully passes an audit. That a Christmas tree item there? Is that a little ornament, Admiral?
Okay, so it does make Congress has complained for a decade that the Department of Defense either doesn't do an audit or fails an audit. Those are the 2 choices each year. This is about, there's value in learning what you're not doing efficiently or effectively. $400 million, it probably sounds like a lot of money. I guess when you're auditing a $900 billion budget, it's possible that $400 million is the right amount. I think several hundred million of that, though, is for software to make you be more efficient. The kind of secondary and tertiary things you mentioned there. We'll have to see. We do need an audit, but Congress wasn't going to miss this opportunity to put the money in for it.
All right, very last thing, and it's redundant. That's why I saved it for last. $12 billion with a B to enhance military readiness, expand stocks of spares, improves infrastructure at military depots and shipyards, enhances the capability of special forces. All right, Admiral, just between you and me and the watchers on YouTube, this is a slush fund, isn't it?
Well, okay, so you could say that, but it's also, remember I just said about the border not creating a readiness deficit?
Yeah.
Our operations since October 7th in the Middle East have been only very, very marginally funded by some money that was in the Israeli supplemental that was passed with the Ukraine supplemental and the Asia Pacific supplemental a year ago. So the Biden administration kind of created this budget deficit, this readiness deficit. Remember what I mentioned about the Homeland Security border one? They already created one. I suspect 12 billion's on the lower end of the fix for that. It's about having 2 carrier strike groups and 4 or 5 destroyers. And it's actually been plussed up by President Trump to 2 carrier strike groups. It's about the 3 to 5 extra Air Force squadrons, about the Army THAAD and Patriot systems.
Okay,
So
that
each service
makes
is
sense.
in. That's what this is about. And the maintenance part of it is for the shipyards to do the maintenance that's backlogged.
That makes sense. Admiral, thank you. I didn't know that we'd get through all 10 of them that came out from HASC and SASC today. I appreciate your being the guy to go to on this. Thank you for your time on the West Coast. Enjoy your time out there. Don't go anywhere, America.